Hail, Jim Alexander.
It's Jimmy.
Trae, what's going on?
What's going on, man? Nothing much.
Same here, actually. You know, I lost track of days now with the quarantine and everything. It's kind of almost everything the same every day. How about you?
Yeah, no, tell me about it. It's been a year. I wake up every morning. I was like, it can't be this again.
Yep. I'm glad I'm not the only one feeling that too. Where are you at currently? Are you in LA or Atlanta?
I'm in Atlanta.
Oh, okay. How's everything out there? How are you like handling, and what's your kind of day-to-day like in life now? I mean, everything's kind of changed a lot for every one of us.
Yeah, so you know what? It's pretty depressing, my daily routine. I wake up relatively late, eat some breakfast, and I try to find something to watch. I'm writing a lot recently.
That's good.
I write scripts, so I have a lot of time to write nowadays, and yeah, I'm just hanging out with my family. Everyone's down here, so.
Well, that's big. That's key. You know, at least you have your family around. You're not kind of stuck alone or anything like that. You know, that would make things more difficult.
No, yeah, without a doubt. Because it's my sister, right before all this kind of happened, she flew back from L.A. To Atlanta. So she's staying with us now, so everyone's here, so.
I kind of did the same thing. I flew from L.A. to Chicago, where my family's at. So I was like, early on when it was just starting, I'm like, you know, I think this is going to be for a long haul. I better at least hang out with family because nothing's going to be happening for a while.
Exactly. And yeah, it's unfortunate. I wish I could get back to LA and hang out and, you know, do stuff, but.
Yeah, tell me. Kind of tell me about. I'm kind of curious. So you're kind of bi-coastal, right? L.A. and Atlanta, and the show I think filmed in Atlanta too. So, tell me how are you kind of managing the two coasts in a sense, Atlanta and L.A. How was your life kind of when we were doing, you know, back in the old days when we had everything going on?
Well, at first I never liked LA because I always like associated it with work. And now it's almost the other way around. Now whenever I go to LA, all I do is hang out with my friends. Because like back in the day when I was first going out there, it was like I never really had any friends. I was kind of doing my work a little while. But as the years progressed, I have so many people out there that I like call on a daily and like always want to like hang out with. And when I'm there, like I really don't do much except just hang out and, you know, have a good time. Opposed to when I come to Atlanta, I'm actually like, okay, now I actually got to do stuff. I got to write. I got to do my school. I got to do all my stuff that I usually have to do. So it's, right now, usually, it's really like LA is the vacation spot almost. So.
Oh, that's interesting. What a reversal, man. What a reversal.
Right?
Yeah, you would think it'd be the other way around, but that makes sense because you know what?
No.
The thing is, I mean, you're based in Atlanta, but how much has the industry changed? Because you hear about Atlanta being one of those spots where so many shows film and television and film and everything happens in Atlanta these days. Have you noticed that change over the years? I mean, coming between Atlanta and LA, how Atlanta started booming in the industry? Because you kind of hear it outside of, you know, LA. Like Atlanta's probably one of the main spots where all these things are going on now.
Oh yeah, no, it really. You know when it really started? It started when my New York agent started sending less stuff sometimes from LA, but a lot of stuff from Atlanta. And I was like, whoa, like what's kind of like going on? Because everything was shooting in Atlanta. Like when you were driving down the street, you'd always see, you know, set directions and everything. It just like, it was almost like overnight. It just like happened. And then, you know, Tyler Perry had his studios here and everything. So
that's
like,
right.
Everything is really, Atlanta right now is booming. So I mean, clearly not during coronavirus. But,
yeah.
But yeah, so it really did happen overnight. But I'm very thankful. Like Stargirl and my other show that I was on, which just came out on May 7th, Robbie, and that also shot in Atlanta too. So everything that I've really done is shot in Atlanta. It's very convenient. It's great.
It's kind of crazy to think about it. You're from there originally, and here, like, you have, like, a major CW show, for example, this one, filming in basically your hometown. What is that kind of like? Are you, like, almost like the tour guide for everyone there? I'd imagine you're so familiar with the surrounding area, you know?
No, totally. It's so funny, because whenever I go on set, like, I remember when we were first on set, like, I was always like, where's everyone from, you know, like, everyone's clearly from different places. All of them are out of LA, so some of them are from St. Louis, all around. And they're like, like, where do you go to get food? And so I'm like, I don't know why you're asking me this. And they're like, oh, you're from here. I'm like, well, yeah, I give you some suggestions. And, my father owns some restaurants down here, so they kind of went there, went up to all those places and everything. But it's really kind of interesting because I drive the set, like 20 minutes. I drive back, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, then I go to set. It's almost like it's this weird feeling that I go back home after a day on set and it just feels normal. So I go to work and then I come back like nothing happened. It's kind of interesting opposed to when you're in LA for a show. Then it always kind of feels like you're just entrenched in it.
Yeah.
When you're here, so it's kind of an interesting feeling. But yeah, it was definitely the tour guide, without a doubt.
Oh, that's crazy. I can't believe imagine you're that close. If you're that close to the set, 20 minutes or so away, you must knew the area, were familiar with it before you start filming, right? I mean, that's so close to your home in that case. You must have been in that area or not, right? I mean, weren't you familiar kind of with the region, I'm guessing, where you guys kind of mainly film?
Yeah, I think it was Atlanta Industrial Parkway or something like that, and so it's 20 minutes away from Buckhead where I live, mm-hmm. And it's on the way up to Smyrna, which is kind of a bigger little city. So I always pass through there all the time. Up there was there's not way too much. Everyone kind of migrated down to Buckhead and Midtown and everything, where all the cool places were, and restaurants and bars and everything like that. But it was just kind of interesting because when I pulled in the person, I was like, oh, I've seen this before. I can't believe we're shooting here. It's interesting. Yeah.
That's crazy. And you know what? The thing is, the show's set in Nebraska, right? So the thing is, it kind of does look even. I've driven through Nebraska on my way to LA a bunch of times. So it actually, that town is interesting because it does look like a Midwestern, classic kind of Midwestern town in a lot of ways. I would have not been surprised at all if it was Nebraska that you guys actually filmed on location, but that town has got they must have done a good scouting location because they found a real town that really kind of meshes with the show well when you look at it.
Oh, no, totally, definitely. Dallas, Georgia is where they filmed, and it's almost like it's stuck in time. You pull up and it's
mm-hmm.
This is not real. It's this is impossible because it's you pull in and there's all these this main street and all these little cottages and houses, and I was like, this is crazy. It's almost like you're on a Warner Brothers set or something where it's just made specifically to feel like that, but it's just there, and there's tons of those spots all around.
And they're all legitimate spots. These aren't sets by any means, right? This is a real town.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, only the interiors are filmed on set. Yeah, so everything else is usually on location.
That's crazy. I saw the pilot yesterday, and the first thing is, I noticed the first scene you're, with Luke Wilson. I could just imagine what it was like. You get the script, and you see, basically your first scene is with Luke Wilson. What was it like? I'm kind of curious when you first got the script and saw that you're going to be working with him, and basically your first introduction to the show is you working with him. What has that experience kind of been like? And just, for someone who, still, obviously, you're just starting out in the industry in so many ways, that's a big moment, man. I mean, if you're anyone, but I'm curious to hear what it was like for you.
Yeah, I remember when I was actually auditioning for it, and I was I was kind of looking through it, and I was Luke Wilson. I was like, Luke Wilson, is that Owen Wilson's brother? I was like, yeah, it's Owen Wilson's brother. That's crazy. And,
right.
I love Wes Anderson and all that, and he's from World Tenenbaums. I loved his work forever. So I auditioned for it, and I got it. I booked it off the tape. And I remember I went to the Stargirl offices, and I was talking with Geoff Johns, and then Luke walks in, and he's like, hey, I can't believe they cast you. You look a lot better than me. And I was like, dude, I'm talking to Luke Wilson. And then the next day when we went for rehearsals, the day after. That night of rehearsals, he's like, hey, you want to go to a basketball game? And I was like, yeah, of course I did. So we went to the basketball game. We went to the basketball game, the Hawks game, the first night of rehearsal. And it was the coolest thing because I was we really kind of built this very organic father-son relationship. Mm-hmm. And it was just so easy. I still stay in contact with him, called him the other day. So it's really just, I'm so thankful that I got to have someone as cool as Luke and have as much knowledge in the industry as he does. And he's a writer as well. He writes his own scripts. I write my own scripts, and we just have a lot. We have some good times, and it's a really good experience.
It's interesting you say that. I mean, not only Luke just seems like, he kind of seems like the guy, what you see is what you get on screen, really, in a lot of ways, the way you describe him, too. So I'd imagine he's pretty cool and chill, just kind of like a down-to-earth, fun guy in real life, as he would be on most of his films. But your on-screen, actually, relationship stood out to me right away, because it's like, obviously you guys he's your father, but then there's a whole different step-sister, stepmother kind of relationship in it. And the basis would be that you guys would be closer together because you're kind of the only two that are from this whole family that have been together all your lives together in that sense too. So there's a different dynamic between the Courtney character and your character with Luke. So that's really cool to hear that you guys kind of build that chemistry offset too, that really translated on screen.
Well, yeah, I'm glad to hear it. It was really great because when you were just saying that they were together their whole lives, what they really did is Mike never really knew his mother, and they were driving around the country for pretty much his whole life. He was his pal. He was pretty much his brother almost, because they only had each other for his whole life. And when Courtney Breck Bassinger comes in, it's just really almost like a culture shock. Because it's just so weird to him that someone else can have a relationship with his father as well. So he goes from being this really over the top kind of goofy character to later in the season being actually a kind of important pivotal character in the show, and kind of really changes. And his character arc is really great because for that reason. So yeah,
I'm excited to see, but I could imagine that you might become the glue of the family in a lot of ways, because you'd be the bonding thing between Courtney, Luke's character, and Amy's character. You're kind of the middle man in a sense in a lot of these ways. That uniting force. I could see that happening totally down the road. So I'm looking forward to seeing that aspect of you. You mentioned Geoff Johns, and Geoff is someone, for those that know about the DC universe, he's a monumental figure in the DC universe. I mean, especially we're talking about the Justice League movie that we had, and just the revival of the DC movie universe in a lot of ways. And this show, from I read up on it, it's personal to him. That is something I really didn't know, how it was kind of inspired by his sister's tragic death. Tell me what it was like having conversations with Geoff about this project, because it's basically his baby in a lot of ways. And what did you learn? I mean, he's got so much knowledge on this whole DC universe. What did you pick up from your conversation with him? Because I could imagine that's a wealth of information when it comes to that whole universe.
Yeah, I along with that first meeting that I was just talking about with Luke, when I was talking with Geoff when I first came to the Stargirl office, he was saying, I sat down, I shook his hand, he was super nice guy. I pointed out all of his, he had a lot of Star Wars DC memorabilia, of course, in his office, and I sat down, and he's before we say anything, I'm just to be honest, that you really hit the nail on the head with Mike. Mike is a really important character, and he really spoke to me in your audition, and I'm really touched how that has come to fruition with your tape, and eventually filming the season. And of course, the last table read, I remember at the end it says dedication to his sister, and everyone the room kind of just was quiet for a little bit, because it was just, we understood how important it was to him. Mm-hmm. And Geoff was just overjoyed with how it turned out, and the whole thing was just really a beautiful experience, because the fact that you can make something as amazing as this show, or as this concept, when you were as young as he was my age when he first wrote Stargirl comics.
Wow.
And to see that really come into life, into a live action show, that must be no other feeling. So yeah.
No, that's cool.
Really,
has he been kind of a presence around the set too? Do you kind of see him around, or is he accessible in a way too? Because I mean, I would imagine he would have the most personal kind of knowledge on this show and on it. Do you feel like he's kind of accessible when you need him and stuff, or is he around?
Definitely, he was there almost every day.
Wow.
Like he overworked himself really because like he was so involved and it was amazing. Like if you had a question, go to Geoff. Like he would always be there. If you had any ideas, if you had an idea for a scene maybe, or maybe like something that like he could like your character could do in a scene, he was always open to it. He would be taking notes all the time, and no matter what, you could have the most ridiculous request. And he would always have a smile on his face and actually take it into consideration. It was the most amazing thing. And it was that was why the experience on set was so good, because it came from the top down. He was really just one of the most positive and nice, generous people I've ever met in my life, to be honest. So he really, this show, he was very accessible, to answer your question. He was just
awesome.
Very accessible, very nice guy. Go out to dinner with him and talk to him about your character. It was a very open boss and employee relationship.
That's cool to hear, because it's so important. I mean, that's what makes the show kind of a family in a lot of ways, all of you bonding together, but having the brains literally behind the whole concept of it and so accessible. I'm sure it makes everything so much easier for you guys, too, in so many ways.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it's everything's very transparent. Like you're never afraid to ask any questions about any scene or anything like that. And yeah, it makes everything easier.
I wanted to ask you, as an actor, you got cast off a self-tape, which is something that's more and more, as you're noticing, probably becoming popular these days. Now, especially, I can imagine once things start rebooting after the whole pandemic. But how do you find, like, in-person auditions versus self-tape? Do you enjoy one over the other? Because it's a little bit of a different thing. I mean, I've been to casting rooms. It's different. You have that personal feeling. But it's obviously quicker and more accessible to do a self-tape. How do you feel about each and either kind of doing and mastering these auditions?
Well, with my self-tapes, my good friend, I consider him like an uncle almost, Josh Ventura, he tapes all of my auditions, and he's one of the most incredible actors I know. And I remember from very long time ago, he would always just bounce. We would bounce back and forth. The improv was always a major thing in my self-tape auditions. Like no matter what, there would always be like 30 seconds to like a minute of improv in every audition, because Josh like really was like a focal point in my auditions, because it made me, I think, stick out in a lot of these ways. Like in my audition for Stargirl, I probably added too much stuff in my audition, to be honest. But thankfully, Geoff Johns and Luke Wilson, they all liked it, and opposed to in-person auditions where I feel like it's a little more restricted almost. That you kind of have to really rely on how good the reader is and how good. Pretty much the settings have to be perfect in order to have a really good in-person audition. But I've learned over my years how to kind of tackle both. But I think taped auditions, from an enjoyment standpoint, I think are very much more enjoyable.
Interesting. That's cool to hear. I always like hearing kind of actor's perspective, because it's definitely something that's changed, especially over the last 5 years or so, how taped auditions kind of becoming, not only, they're almost becoming the standard now, especially in LA, where people realize maybe to avoid traffic and all that, get it quicker to a casting director, you just do a self-tape. So it's cool to hear that you've kind of done both and how you feel about them. I wanted to ask you, what's your relationship with Brett? Because obviously you guys are on a show, brother kind of sister thing, a new bonding kind of family relationship there. But what are you guys like offset? Are you guys close? Do you guys hang out? I'd imagine it'd be similar, kind of a big sister, younger brother dynamic. What are you guys like, kind of offset?
Oh, totally. Because I remember the first week or two of shooting. She was like, "Hey, Trae, you want to go catch a movie sometime? I'm gonna bring Ange and Hunter and everything." I was like, "Really? Yeah, of course. That's great." We always went to watch movies when something would come out, and we were always very close, I think, and with the whole family, Amy, Luke, and Breck. We always went to dinner. We were always hanging out on set. We would always read our scenes before we would go up there, and even when I'm in LA. I always meet up with Breck, and it's kind of interesting because my sister lives in the Ava apartments.
Oh, those are nice.
And Yeah. So she lives in the same apartment complex as Breck.
Oh, that's awesome.
And well, actually, Breck doesn't actually like live there, but she goes there a lot. And I always see Breck there, and it's so funny. Like whenever I'm in LA, we always meet up and hang out, and that goes for everyone. Like I said, I meet up with Luke and Amy and everyone. It's just no matter how long we haven't seen each other, it always feels very fluid. So yeah.
That's so cool. No, I mean, it seems like you guys are off screen as close as you seem to be on screen. I have to ask you, what has been your all-time kind of favorite superhero? We're going to eliminate Stargirl, because, I mean, obviously that would be an easy answer there. But have you been fan of the superhero genre just kind of throughout the years? And anyone, I'm a Superman guy. I've always been a Superman guy. I'm always doing debates, Batman versus Superman. I'm always making a case. But do you have a personal favorite?
Well, I never was really huge into superheroes, but this kind of got me a little more involved, definitely, because I was always a big Star Wars guy. I love Star Wars, and when I saw this, I was like, oh, well, I could get into this, like the lore and all that, and like all that. So I think if I had to choose to be a superhero, it would probably be Shazam, just because he can just say Shazam and then turn into a superhero and be a normal person. And also, like the electricity coming out of your hands, that's pretty cool. I mean,
and he's got almost the same superhero as Superman does. He can fly, he can do a bunch of stuff.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And his suit, no offense, I think it's cooler. I mean, let's just be honest.
It's true.
His suit's pretty dang cool.
He doesn't. He doesn't have the underwear on top of the pants. How he's trying to figure it out.
Exactly. I think that's a little outdated. He consulted his costume designer and was like, that's not gonna fly with this guy. No underwear on the outside. But, yeah.
Plus, the movie was good too. The Shazam movie was awesome.
I think the movie was very good. It was very enjoyable. It was almost like the one thing with the Marvel universe that I always liked was Deadpool, and I almost felt like it had a Deadpool-esque vibe to it. Shazam.
Totally.
That's why I liked it. It was really goofy. Like DC really pushed the limits with it, and I think that's really what it needed. So yeah, and of course Joker. That was brilliant.
Absolutely.
He did an amazing job. And actually, I have a funny story. I was with Breck. I was with Breck in LA, and we went to the movie theater. Mm-hmm. And we were going to watch Joker. It was opening night. So we watched it. I loved it. It was amazing. And we were walking out of the theater, and there's this huge pileup. Like, in the theater, I was like, what's going on? This is, like, a little weird. And then I go out and I see Joaquin Phoenix. He's standing there. And I'm like, oh my God. But Joaquin Phoenix is at our theater. So I go up to him, I shake his hand, and I'm like frozen, It's like so exciting. And I'm like, hey, what's up, man? I'm an actor. Like, what's up? And then he just looks at me for a second. He's like, that's great. And I was like, oh my God, I just met Joaquin Phoenix, but I was very awkward. It was just like, what do you say at that point? It's like, he's just standing there. But yeah.